ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि वदन्ति भूरिदा जनाः. Your words are like nectar, bringing life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We are on the chapter Advice to Ishan. And this started on page 602, Saturday, October 11th, 1884, and we're up to the top of page 608. And Sri Ramakrishna was talking to a pundit. There was a pundit who came to visit. Of course, Am is always there. And there were a variety of different people there. One of the tutors of the Tagore family was also there. I'll start at the top of the page. One must be very earnest about God. Listen to another song. Can everyone have the vision of Radha? Can everyone taste her love? This, the rarest treasure of all, no earthly wealth can buy. Without devotion and sadhana, none can ever obtain it. The raindrop falling upon the deep when Swati shines on high is formed within the oyster shell into a priceless pearl. Can such a pearl be formed from rain that falls at other times? Mothers with their babes in arms may beckon to the moon to leave the sky and come to them, but only the babes are fooled. Does the moon ever leave the sky and dwell upon the earth? This image about the oyster and the pearl is something which, as Ramakrishna mentions many times, he doesn't always refer to this particular song, but he got the idea from this song. And there's some folk belief that this is how a pearl is formed, that the oyster will float to the surface. And when the star Swati is in the ascendant, this is a very auspicious period for some reason. If it opens its shell and a drop of rain falls, it takes that drop, then it closes and drifts slowly down to the bottom, and very quietly and in the depths of the ocean without any disturbance or anything, it will create a pearl. So this is used as a allegory for receiving spiritual instruction or receiving the mantra, and then interiorizing, going deep within and floating down to the bottom where there are no disturbances. And just by repetition of that mantra, then that pearl of realization will be formed. So it's a very beautiful image that we get from this song. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, one must practice intense spiritual discipline. Can one obtain the vision of God all of a sudden without any preparation? Now, this is also a very big and very important topic, this idea of preparation in spiritual life. Some of you may remember that I gave a talk not too long ago based on a lecture given by Swami Bhudeshanandaji. Yeah, it was called Purastuti, Preparations for Devotion, I think, something like that. Anyhow, the point is that we sometimes think that all we have to do is sit and do our practice, do our meditation and everything, and repeat the mantra, and automatically we'll get some type of high realization. But the ground has to be prepared first. all the stones and the weeds and everything have to be removed before we can even plant the seed. So we have to have some uh, preparation. This preparation will be in the form of purification of the heart. It'll be in the form of spiritual practice, because spiritual practice is a means for preparation. Uh, it'll have to do with uh, dealing with all of the passions and everything else. So it's a very big subject. This preparation in spiritual life is almost more important than the practice. If the preparation is done correctly, the practice should go very smoothly. So that's why so much emphasis is given to making ourselves really ready. We have that beautiful story Thakur tells when the king wants to visit a home, and one of the subjects in this small kingdom. At first, he'll send somebody there, his minister, and examine the place and say, and no, before the king can come, you have to clean out everything, and you have to have a nice table for him to sit at, and a nice china to offer him tea and everything. So we have to clean out all of the dirt and dust of the heart, and we have to obtain these valuable uh, treasures of viveka, vairagya, yeah, discrimination and devotion and love and dispassion, all of those different things. Then the king can come. Yeah. Yes. Preparation is nothing but putting it into practice. Preparation, yeah. Preparation precedes the practice, and yet the practice is part of the process of preparation. So if we say that we won't achieve anything until the heart is pure, that doesn't mean that we wait until the heart is pure. So by preparation, see, Sri Ramakrishna, he's talking about intense spiritual discipline. Yeah, this is the first thing he's talking about. Everything else is assumed that we have to lead a good, clean, moral, ethical type of life. No lying, no cheating, no stealing, all the very standard types of things. But in addition to that, we have to develop some intense longing for God realization. We have to develop this uh, dispassion for sense pleasure. We have to develop all of these spiritual qualities. Yeah. So, yeah, how do we do it? Uh, we do it partly through our practice, partly through uh, keeping holy company. Yeah. Partly through the readings that we do and everything, anything that we can do, going on pilgrimage, that can increase that longing for God. This
Vivek, Vairagya, and Shat Sampati will come as a preparation, Maharaj.
Vairagya,
Vivek, Vairagya, and Shat Sampati will come as a
yeah,
preparation.
yeah, all of these, yeah, that's all preparation, but it takes spiritual practice to do all of that. Yeah, one must practice intense spiritual discipline. So this is the main thing. Uh, See, there's a tendency to think that all we have to do is understand these principles of Vedanta. That what is the relationship between the lower self and the higher self, and what is the real meaning of Brahman, and uh, what is the nature of the jiva, and how do we discriminate according to three states of consciousness, and how do we practice peeling off the layers, the panchakosha, and all of that. That it becomes just an intellectual kind of thing. If there's no longing for realization, if there's no willingness to sacrifice, to give up our attachments and everything, then it's just an intellectual process. So this intense spiritual discipline, not just floating on the surface, it has to be something intense. Can one obtain the vision of God all of a sudden without any preparation? Now, this all of a sudden, Thakur, he'll give the opposite impression sometimes. he'll say if you go into a room that's been dark for 1,000 years and you flip on the switch, does it get light little by little or all at once? So the point is that when this illumination comes, it comes in a flash. But the process to get there is very long and sometimes slow process. So uh, this preparation, it means that we may have to search for years and years before we find the room. We get into the dark room and have to try to find where the light switch is. Yeah. And finally, when we find it, that means we're already at the last step. And then we flip it in all at once. A man asked me, "Why don't I see God?" I said to him, as the idea came to my mind, "You want to catch a big fish. First, make arrangements for it. Throw spiced bait into the water. Get a line and a rod. At the smell of the bait, the fish will come from the deep water. By the movement of the water, you will know that a big fish has come." You want to eat butter, but what will you achieve by simply repeating that there is butter in milk? You have to work hard for it. Only thus can you separate butter from milk. Can one see God by merely repeating God exists? One needs sadhana. Now, the thing about sadhana, spiritual practice, is that something has to awaken deep within that impels us to do spiritual practice. Sadhana can never be something that we do as a chore. Somehow this longing for God or realization, it doesn't have to be a personal type of thing, uh, has to become so strong that the mind is just forced in that direction and it longs to do spiritual practice. Then we know that we've made a little bit of progress. So this when Thakur says we have to work hard, yeah, we have to work hard, but that inspiration has to be there. If it's just somebody says, yeah, now you sit for long hours, you wake up early, and we do it just as a chore, or we do it under compulsion, it, it, it can develop, of course, but the when sadhana comes as a result of vairagya and anuraga, as this longing for realization and this real desire to throw off this burden of ignorance and attachment and everything. And then the sadhana becomes a natural type of thing. Thakur always wanted things to be natural and spontaneous. But that means we have to get rid of all of these obstacles and things. So all the attachments, we get rid of them, then it automatically takes place. The Divine Mother herself practiced austere sadhana to set an example for mankind. Sri Krishna, who is none other than the ultimate Brahman, also practiced sadhana to set an example to others. Now, we'll get some very interesting Vedantic thought and Vedantic theory based on some of the Vaishnava principles and teachings. Generally, we think of this Krishna and Radha only in terms of this loving relationship, the Madhur Bhava. But they also have this very deep philosophical idea where uh, Sri Krishna and Radha represent Brahman and Shakti, something like that. Yeah, this is part of this Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. Sri Krishna is the Purusha and Radha the Prakriti, the Chit Shakti, the Adya Shakti. So just as we have with all other concepts that Brahman and Shakti, Shiva and Kali, all of these different concepts, there'll be the male principle and the female principle. And the male principle is generally the transcendent absolute aspect, and the female principle is the dynamic, immanent aspect. So Sri Krishna is the Purusha and Radha the Prakriti, the Chit Shakti. So we have this idea of Shakti. You may remember there's one place, once or twice, where Sri Ramakrishna says that Chaitanya Deva also accepted Shakti. Now, we don't think of him as a Shakti worshiper or anything, but this idea of Radha as being the Shakti, the that power to project this universe, Chit Shakti, that inheres in Brahman. It is not separate from Brahman. So this is why when he says that Krishna is Purusha, Radha Prakriti, it's not as two separate entities. There will be this union of the two, and this is how this Vedanta, of course, has this difference with the Sankhya philosophy that there'll be some intimate union and connection or oneness or inseparability. There's different ways of understanding it.
Swamiji, when we say that Ishvara Bhagwan, that is the imminent part of the Brahman, right?
Ishvara is considered to be the power that is responsible for this whole universe. So that's the ground underlying. Also, that enters into everything, so imminent. So it has both aspects to it. Yeah. So Ishvara can be identified with the innermost self, or with the witnessing consciousness, but is also that Saguna Brahman, that aspect of Brahman, which is this Chit Shakti. So Ishvara is the same as Saguna Brahman, or the personal aspect of God, creator aspect of God. So both, but also enters into it. So we have three things: this creative power, also the material cause of the universe, because he says that this Prakriti is the embodiment of the three gunas. So there's the material cause of the universe, and then entering in within, dwelling within the heart, enlightening the mind so that the jiva can function, being the witness, being the inner controller, antaryaman, being the real karta, agent of action. Different ways of looking at it, but yeah. So Sri Krishna is the Purusha and Radha the Prakriti, the Chit Shakti, the Adya Shakti. So this is the primordial power that it dwells within Brahman, here, Krishna, before the creation of the universe, or when the universe is in unmanifest state. And that manifestation is dependent upon this Shakti becoming active. And even they say this avatar belongs to this play of Shakti, the part of that divine power, how that can manifest in human form, also through this Shakti. Radha is the Prakriti, the embodiment of the three gunas. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are in her. As you remove the layers of an onion, you will first see tints of both black and red, then only red, and last of all, only white. Yeah, we're used to the other illustration of the onion, peeling the onion, the panchakosha, but that this is actually similar, because the first outer layer, which refers to the body, is the most gross, and as it gets more and more subtle, the color becomes lighter. So we can see how they go hand in hand, these two ideas. The Vaishnava scriptures speak of Kamaradha, Premaradha, and Nityaradha. Chandravali is the Kamaradha, and Srimati, meaning Radha, is Premaradha. Nanda saw Nityaradha holding Gopala in her arms. And there's a footnote for all of this. Kamaradha, full of seductive power, is the first aspect of Radha. And this refers to the different gopis also. Premarada, full of ecstatic love, is her second aspect. Nityarada is her third aspect as the eternal primordial power. Chandravali, one of the gopis, had a lustful attitude towards Sri Krishna. So she really is like this Kamarada. Srimati, another name of Radhika, the foremost of the gopis. Nanda was Sri Krishna's foster father. So Nanda and Yashoda, foster father and mother. And Devaki and Vasudeva were the birth parents, you can say. The Brahman of Vedanta and the Chit Shakti are identical, like water and its wetness. Now, we shouldn't get confused here. He He's not saying that Chit Shakti is the same as the Brahman of Vedanta. He's saying that Brahman and its power are inseparable. Now, this term, the abhinna or abheda, uh, that it has two meanings that gets confusing sometimes. I mention this all of the time because uh, my preference would be in cases like this is to say they're inseparable. We've already distinguished that they're two different things. One is this Brahman aspect, one is the Prakriti aspect. They're not identical in the sense that when Thakur says Brahman and Kali, what you call Brahman, I call Kali. That's the, or Nirguna Brahman and Saguna Brahman. There's only one. There are two that can't be separated. Because I'll give the example, like water and its wetness. Now, we won't say that water and wetness are identical. One is a substance, one is a quality, but we don't find one without the other.
In that case, woman and motherhood, they're also inseparable. Right?
Yes, so that same idea that they're not inseparable. See, the woman and the mother are the same person. So we won't say, so if, say, Sushil is here, if I say that Dr. Sharma came in and Sushil came in, does it make any sense? It's the same person. One is with his career and his activity, and the other is just the person. We won't say they're inseparable. There's only one. But if we say that Sushil and his knowledge of medicine, you can't think of his knowledge of medicine without him, or him without his knowledge of medicine. So that way they're inseparable. So sometimes abheda or abhinna, it means inseparable. Sometimes it means one, identical. Yeah. So here, I think it really is trying to say that the Brahman and Chit Shakti, or that Krishna and Radha, are inseparable. And not inseparable like two separate entities are always together, but one adheres in the other. Say the color that belongs to substance and attribute. We can't have any pure attribute. We can't have just the color blue. It has to be something that's blue, and we can't have a thing that doesn't have a color. Even clear crystal has a color, actually. Yeah. So that way, they're inseparable. One adheres in the other. So the moment you think of water, you must also think of its wetness. And the moment you think of water's wetness, you must also think of water. Or it is like the snake and its wriggling motion. Now, we won't say that they're identical. One is a snake, one is a wriggling motion. But we'll say that they're inseparable, or we can't imagine one without the other. So that way, abhed. The moment you think of the snake, you must also think of its wriggling motion, even when it's not moving. This is why the nirguna aspect is the essential and unchangeable aspect. And the saguna aspect sometimes is active, sometimes is not active. Snake may be coiled up and unmoving. But even unmoving, its potential has to be there. So the moment you think of the snake, you must also think of its wriggling motion. And the moment you think of the snake's wriggling motion, you must also think of the snake. When do I call the ultimate reality by the name of Brahman? This means Nirguna Brahman. When it is actionless or unattached to action. Now, look at this. When there's no creation, say at this time of unmanifestation, pralaya, Brahman we understand. There has to be Nirguna Brahman. When this creation takes place, Brahman still exists as Nirguna Brahman. The creation is there. Brahman is completely unattached to it. Then Brahman has the two aspects. So now the mother aspect is there, but the woman aspect is unchanged. When the woman has a child and becomes a mother, that woman is. So that's why Thakur says that I call it by the name of Brahman when it is actionless or unattached to action. So we shouldn't think that during this period of creation there's only Saguna Brahman. Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman, they're one and the same. Just our understanding is different. That Brahman, if we say Brahman has become all this, that means the Saguna aspect. It's not that there's no Nirguna aspect anymore. It doesn't get exhausted by creation. We have these highly allegorical things that that 1/10 becomes the creation. Different ideas like that, but really, 100% of Brahman remains unattached. Yeah, that sun is completely unattached. And when the creation is there, many reflections will be there. It doesn't affect the nirguna aspect of it. Saguna aspect is there because now the mechanism is there for it to enter into all of the different containers of water.
Swamiji, isn't this a much more plausible way of Thakur's position on Advaita, as he's putting it? Unmanifest is real, and the manifest is also real. That's easy to understand.
Yes.
According to Thakur, what he's saying here.
See, when we use the term unmanifest and manifest, we're talking about Prakriti, and not about this Nirguna Brahman. This unmanifest is simply this whole creation. Sometimes the wave is up, sometimes it's down, that way. But if you're saying a way to understand Nirguna Brahman and Saguna Brahman, yes, of course, it's a beautiful way of understanding it. Yeah.
The wave is real.
Yeah.
The substratum on which the wave is also real.
Yes.
According to Thakur.
The wave is real only when we understand that it's water, the same substance, and it's resting on the whole ocean. If we think it's something independent and separate from the ocean, then it's unreal. He gives a little reversal to that. Yeah.
But according to Advaita, they're separate.
No. This is Advaita Vedanta. There's nothing else.
Do they say wave is unreal?
No. The name and form are unreal. The wave is the ocean. It's water. You won't find this concept of unreality in the Upanishads or in Gita anywhere. This Brahman itself has become all this. This is the material cause of the universe. The name and the form hide the reality from us so that we don't see it. The snake may be unreal, but it's the rope. It's a rope after all. It's not that the whole thing is imagined. The rope is there. We have our own personal ignorance. The wave is not unreal. The wave is the surface of the ocean. This is Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta doesn't have to rely on this idea of the unreality of the world in the sense that it's just a projection out of my mind, something like that. This isn't that concept. We may want to bring in this cosmic mind projecting everything, but the Upanishads are much more realistic than that. They really talk about these elements being projected and evolving and everything, but all traced back to Brahman, that's all. But the name and the form are the things that if they make us fail to understand that we're actually seeing the ocean, then there's that element of ignorance to it. Well, otherwise the wave is the ocean. We can't separate them. When a man puts on a cloth, he remains the same man as when he was naked. He was naked, now he is clothed. He may be naked again. There's poison in the snake, but it doesn't harm the snake. It is poison to him who is bitten by the snake. Brahman itself is unattached. Now, what we talked about name and form. Names and forms are nothing but the manifestations of the power of Prakriti. Now, we want to say this power is the power of avidya or ignorance. Okay. If we want to say that the power of lila, this divine play, okay. Not much difference. The difference is the attitude. That's all. We give it a positive spin or a negative spin. That's all. Sita said to Hanuman, "My child, in one form I am Sita, in another form I am Rama." Now, how can Sita be both Rama and Sita? Because this is the Prakriti aspect. This is the Saguna aspect that will manifest as everything. And now, it doesn't mean that Thakur can't say, "I see Rama in all men." seats in all women. That's from a different angle. But from this angle, that this Brahmin won't be able to say anything. Brahmin is the Brahmin. Yeah. In one form, I am Indra. In another, I am Indrani. In one form, I am Brahma. In another, Brahmani. In one form, I am Rudra. In another, Rudrani. Another footnote. Indrani, Brahmani, and Rudrani are the consorts or powers of Indra, Brahma, and Rudra. So we have this idea even with the idea of these deities, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, that they all have their Shakti, they have their consort, and it's incomplete if we don't take the two of them together. We don't get the full picture. Whatever names and forms you see are nothing but the manifestation of the power of Chit Shakti. So, according to, if we want to be Advaitins, what is that power, Chit Shakti? Avarana Shakti, Vikshepa Shakti. Yeah, hiding. But first, projection. We have to have this projection first, this Chit Shakti, and then we can fail to see things. We have to have the dream first before we can be fools in the dream and misunderstand everything. Everything is the power of Chit Shakti. Even meditation and he who meditates. As long as I feel that I am meditating, I am within the jurisdiction of Prakriti, of nature. Yeah. And we can take this nature, capital P, or we can take it within the jurisdiction of our own minds, the nature of our own mind. To M. Try to assimilate what I have said. One should hear what the Vedas and the Puranas say and carry it out in life. Now, don't be fooled by how simply Thakur explains all of this. This is the deepest, most insightful explanation of Saguna Nirguna Brahman that you'll get no matter who you read, any great philosophers or anything. If we really go through all of this and pick through all of this, the clarity of his thinking is just, it boggles the mind. To the Pandit. See, this is all to a Pandit so far. So this, he knows this is someone who will understand all of these things. It is good to live in the company of holy men now and then. The disease of worldliness has become chronic in man. It is mitigated to a great extent in the holy company. Now, Thakur is saying all of this to this Pandit. That means that he respects him. It means that he understands that this Pandit has some depth to him. Otherwise, if it's some very proud Pandit who just wants to argue, he won't be able to say these things. He'll say as if somebody is holding my tongue. Yeah. And so he cares about him. And so many Pandits came to Sri Ramakrishna who were really highly qualified spiritual souls and gained so much from the company of Sri Ramakrishna, and even left everything and renounced everything and went to Benares. Yeah. So he was fortunate. Of course, he must have run across many that he wasn't interested in. And before meeting them, he would say first, he would ask Hridaya, whoever, to go and see, is he a mere Pandit, or does he have a little bit of humility and a little bit of Viveka and Vairagya, a little dispassion and a little real discernment, discrimination. The disease of worldliness has become chronic in man. Yeah. So it's not a one-day thing. There's a chronic illness. Unless something is done, it won't disappear on its own. We have to do something about it. It is mitigated to a great extent in holy company. This is the best medicine, holy company. I and mine, that is ignorance. Now, we get hung up too much with this ajnana and avidya, this ignorance as some cosmic category. Better to stick with these very basic things. Yeah, when I think of myself, I did it, or this belongs to me. He says, I and mine, this is ignorance. True knowledge makes one feel, oh God, you alone do everything. You alone are my own, and to you alone belonging houses, buildings, family, relatives, friends, the whole world. All is yours. But ignorance makes one feel, I am doing everything. I am the doer. House, buildings, family, children, friends, and property are all mine. Now, can we feel that I am the doer and be a spiritual aspirant? Question. Yeah, of course. Of course. We all feel that we're the doer. We all feel that we're the doer. But we can't do it with this pride and arrogance. This is the whole thing. And Thakur, this is one of his most important teachings, that this feeling of I remains, so utilize it. But don't let it be this I, this prideful I. This ego has a huge range of manifestations, we can say. The lowest is this I that just wants enjoyment and pleasure and the recognition, is filled with pride and all the passions and everything. The highest type of I for the Jnani is realize I am nothing but that Brahman, or for the devotee that I'm eternal child of the Divine Mother, a servant of God. Yeah. So for the whole concept, do everything as an offering to God, depends on this idea that I am the doer. Yeah, but I have to be the doer who does everything for God, does everything as an offering to God. Then that sense of I will slowly become less and less and less. And we can reach a stage where if we feel ourselves to be one with that pure consciousness, there's no I in it. That's a different story. But in the beginning, we have to utilize this sense of I. Thakur says so clearly. It's like a huge banyan tree, and you cut the whole thing down. You think, bah, I'm free from this I. The next day you see, very next day, sprouts are coming back up. Yeah. So this is the nature of that I. But I and mine, this doesn't simply mean feeling of being the agent and feeling of possessing things. It means that prideful I, and this feeling of, yeah, it's mine. You can't take it. It belongs to me. That type of I and mine. Now we get these terrible examples of who was our very own. Once a teacher was explaining all this to a disciple. He said, God alone and no one else is your own. The disciple said, but revered sir, my mother, my wife, and my other relatives take very good care of me. They see nothing but darkness when I am not present. How much they love me. The teacher said, there you are mistaken. I shall show you presently that nobody is your own. Take these few pills with you. When you go home, swallow them and lie down in bed. People will think you are dead, but you will remain conscious of the outside world and will see and hear everything. Then I shall visit your home. The disciple followed the instructions. He swallowed the pills and lay as if unconscious in his bed. His mother, wife, and other relatives began to cry. Just then the teacher came in the guise of a physician and asked the cause of their grief. When they had told him everything, he said to them, here is a medicine for him. It will bring him back to life. But I must tell you one thing. The medicine must first be taken by one of his relatives and then given to him. But the relative who takes it first will die. I see his mother, his wife, and others here. Certainly, one of you will volunteer to take the medicine. Then the young man will come back to life. The disciple heard all this. First, the physician called his mother, who was weeping and rolling on the ground in grief. He said to her, Mother, you don't need to weep anymore. Take this medicine and your son will come to life, but you will die. The mother took the medicine in her hand and began to think. After much reflection, she said to the physician, with tears in her eyes, My child, I have a few more children. I have to think about them too. I'm wondering what will happen to them if I die. Who will feed them and look after them? The physician next called the wife and handed the medicine to her. She had been weeping bitterly too. With the medicine in her hand, she began to reflect. She had heard that she would die from the effect of the medicine. At last, with tears in her eyes, she said, "He has met his fate. If I die, what will happen to my young children? Who will keep them alive? How can I take the medicine?" In the meantime, the disciple had got over the effect of the pills. He was now convinced that nobody was really his own. He jumped out of bed and left the place with his teacher. The Guru said to him, "There's only one whom you may call your own, and that is God." There's another similar story, even worse, where they have to chop off the arms and legs of course. Yeah. Now, what do we think of this story? First of all, what the wife said and what the mother said are true. We have to understand that. Second of all, there are mothers who will give up their lives for a child. I'm convinced of that. There are people who would do that. I'm convinced of it. But Thakur is making a point here. His point is even those who love us and say mother, father, whatever, they're not going to be here forever. One day they'll die also. If they die before us, then they're not there anymore. He just wants them to say that rely on God. Have that feeling. God is our very own, and we don't know about other people. But even if we did know about it, we come from a family where they're all willing to die for us, still, that the real reality is the indwelling God within. That all of these, it may be the maidservant, she may be working for a boss who's really kind and really loves her, and the children really look upon her almost as their own mother, but they're not. She has her own mother, her own children in the
Yeah,
village.
there was Sati Pratha that women just would die with the husband.
That usually they were forced to die, the sati, or the life was so unbearable that they did it, or a lot of pressure. Yeah, there may have been some who did it. Of course, the original story of Sati, yeah, was she had love for her husband that she would accompany him. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Now, uh, just last Sunday, I spoke in the Holy Mother's last final message that no one is a stranger. Learn to make the whole world your own. This is the second stage. Yeah, once we get rid of this uh, relationship based on attachment, based on Maya, and have some understanding of that divine reality within all, then we can embrace everything with the Daya, with this universal type of love. So this isn't, we, and the story is about somebody who's going to renounce the
No
world.
man would jump for a wife in the fire. At least women did it. So you know what?
Yeah, women are better than men.
Yeah,
Yeah, we know that.
okay.
We know that.
But there is some of the
Yeah.
Rajputa women.
Yeah,
They sacrifice
the
their lives.
Rajputana women were,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
But there's other side to this also, right? Even after you know that God is everything.
Yes.
Like Jagadananda ji says, everybody extols the virtue of Ramakrishna Loka, but no one is in a hurry to go there.
Yeah. There's attachment. Yeah. Some are in a hurry. Therefore, one should act in such a way that he may have bhakti for the lotus feet of God. This is the point. Yeah, that if we have too much attachment to our to the world and to our possessions and our loved ones and everything, then we have to remind ourselves that they're not, their existence isn't just for our enjoyment and pleasure, and they have their own lives and everything. But there's that ultimate reality is the thing that we want to cling to. So therefore, one should act in such a way that he may have bhakti for the lotus feet of God and love God as his very own. You see this world around you. It exists for you only for a couple of days. There is nothing to it. Yeah, even all of our relations and everything, this is a one lifetime thing. And we don't know previous lifetime of who was what or anything. Yeah, what type of relationships we had. Pundit smiling. Revered sir, I feel a spirit of total renunciation when I'm here. I feel like going away, giving up the world. Master, No, no. Why should you give it up? Give up mentally, live unattached in the world. So this is the advice for the householder, and giving up everything and going away. This is the advice for the monk. Yeah, both are valid, equally valid. Surendra wanted to spend the night here occasionally. This is his Suresh Mitra, who was so devoted to Sri Ramakrishna and one of the suppliers of his needs. Thakur loved him very dearly. He was a great devotee. Surendra wanted to spend the night here occasionally. He brought a bed and even spent a day or two here. Then his wife said to him, "You may go anywhere you like during the daytime, but at night you must not leave home." What could poor Surendra do? Now he has no way of spending the night away from home. What will you achieve by mere reasoning? And be restless for God and learn to love Him. See, if there's love for our near and dear ones, love for our possessions, if that's the bar for loving God, then we have to bring in this negative side. Pratipaksha bhavana. We have to somehow learn to see these other things as obstacles or distasteful even, in order to develop that real love. But as a temporary thing, that higher state is we see God in the husband, God in the wife, God in the children. Serving them is part of our spiritual practice. But in the beginning, when that attachment is so strong, we have to take that attitude of the maidservant. Yes, in this lifetime, they're the ones that I'm meant to serve, and I have this relationship and everything. So these illustrations, we have to be very careful that we don't take them too literally, and we don't see the intent of it, and we don't see the other side. That no one is a stranger. This is really a more mature aspect. This is why Thakur says first negation, then affirmation, even with regard to something like this. What will you achieve by mere reasoning? Be restless for God and learn to love Him. Reason, mere intellectual knowledge, is like a man who can go only as far as the outer court of the house. Yeah, we only suffer that we're so close and we can't go inside. It's not a good situation. Uh, but bhakti is like a woman who goes into the inner court. So this goes back to that old Zanana tradition. That the women had their place inside. That there they could laugh and giggle and have fun and take off their veils and be real human beings. And going outside, they had to be so formal, and strangers couldn't see their face, and all sorts of restrictions at that time. One must take up a definite attitude towards God. So this was really the practical teaching of Sri Ramakrishna. When he says this I and mine are unreal and ignorance and everything, that has to be understood from that other point of view, that this egotistical attitude and everything. Otherwise, this sense of I is and sense of mine. These are critical elements according to bhakti. My Lord, my God, my Rama. My Gopala, this idea. One must take up a definite attitude toward God. Then alone can one realize Him. Now, there will be now the Gyanis will say, no. From the very beginning, I'll say this I is unreal. Yeah, this is also a path, but I'm the one saying this I is unreal, and this is actually this Shanta Bhava somehow that. It still involves some sense of I. Everything does, yeah. But that relationship is a kind of non-relational relationship. The idea of oneness. Rishis like Sanaka. So now we get to this. Cherish the attitude of Shanta. This Shanta Bhava is the one that's not considered to be really a devotional mood. Even though it's part of this Panchabhava, the Vaishnava tradition and everything, they don't emphasize it. It's considered the lowest of all. For the Jnani, this is the main mood, peaceful mood. no high ups and downs and everything. When we read about this Stita Prajna in Gita, this will be that Shanta Bhava also. So rishis like Sanaka cherish the attitude of Shanta. Hanuman, the attitude of a servant. The cowherd boys of Vrindavan, like Sridama and Sudama, the attitude of a friend. Yashoda, the attitude of a mother, and Radha, the attitude of a sweetheart. So this is the technique that's used in the Bhakti Yoga in this Vaishnava tradition, is that we have an ideal that we try to identify with, which is the ideal worshiper, in order to experience the object of worship. So even to the extent of dressing like Mother Yashoda, or feeling ourselves to be like a monkey, Thakur did, hopping from place to place, eating bananas and everything, just to create that mindset. This arop kora, he says, yeah, to imprint on the mind this new identity as a particular type of worshiper of God, according to these different ideals. O God, thou art the Lord, and I am thy servant. That is the servant's attitude, a very good one for aspirants. Now, what about the attitude, I am a child and God is the mother? This simply belongs to the Shakta tradition, not the Vaishnava tradition. It's equally valid, if not more so. And Thakur actually emphasized these two, that look upon God as mother, or look upon yourself as a servant of God. These seem to be the two that he emphasized most. Pandit, yes, sir. The Pandit from Sinti left. It was dusk. Twilight hung over the Panchavati, the temples, and the river. Evening worship began in the different temples, accompanied by the sound of bells, gongs, and conch shells. Sri Ramakrishna bowed before the pictures of the deities in his room. He was sitting on the small couch in an abstracted mood. A few devotees were on the floor. There was silence in the room. Yeah, this is the scene that takes place every day at twilight. The Sandhya, well, Thakur would go into that mood, and he would hear the bells and conch everything from the temple, know that Arati is starting and everything, and mind would just go into this different realm. It would just be intoxicated with something, and then when he would come down and give teachings, it would be infused with that. Well, this chapter is advice to Ishan. We'll see how in that state of ecstasy, the mind comes down enough to be able to talk and everything, but still infused with that ecstatic mood. An hour passed. Ishan and Kishori entered and sat down on the floor after saluting Sri Ramakrishna. Ishan was a great ritualist. He was devoted to the performance of the various rites and ceremonies prescribed by the scriptures. The master opened the conversation. Now, I'll just say a few words about Ishan, because this everything in this chapter so far has just been preliminary to the essential feature of this chapter, which is the advice that Thakur is going to give to Ishan on the steps of the Kali temple in that ecstatic state. But we have to know a little bit about this Ishan. I've read this chapter, of course, many times, and I've always thought, if Thakur had said these things to any one of us, we would have just withered up on the spot and disappeared. That it's so strong and seems so harsh and everything. But I just read it this afternoon. I had a slightly different insight into all of this, how much he loved this Ishan, how much he cared for him, how much he understood that this last thing was just a little obstacle that could release him from all of this, and how much grace is involved in all of this, and how Ishan understood it so well. Of course, this will make sense when we read it a little more. But let me just say a few things about this Ishan because he was very devoted to Sri Ramakrishna and everyone loved him very much. Ishan Chandra Mukhopadhyay. So it says that Vishesh Kripa Prapto Grihi Bhakto, he was a householder devotee who had received special grace, the special grace of Sri Ramakrishna. And he was extremely generous. I've mentioned this before, that Swamiji used to say, equally, if not more generous than Vidyasagar, who was considered the paradigm that way. And he used to go regularly to Dakshineshwar to see Sri Ramakrishna. And as a result of all of that, he developed into someone who took complete refuge with Sri Ramakrishna. Ashrita Rupe Parigonitohan. So he can be counted among those who, whether we say disciple or anything, that someone who took absolute shelter and refuge with Sri Ramakrishna. Thakur went to his house on several occasions, and Ishan served him there. He spent the final years of his life doing sadhana, doing spiritual practice and worship, and then he passed away in 1898. He had two sons. One was a classmate and friend of M, and the other was a classmate and friend of Narendra, of Swamiji. And when Swamiji when he stayed in Gazipur to see Pavari Baba, he stayed in the house. One son was, let's see, Surish Chandra. The other was Satish Chandra.
He was older than Thakur.
Yes.
He was older than Thakur.
Yeah. So the Satish Chandra was a classmate of Swamiji's and his friend. Also, I think some musical. They did music things together. Maybe Brahma Samaj did that time also. But this Ishan, he, as a Brahmin, he had a little bit of a position. In those days, if you belonged to the Brahmin community, people would come to you for spiritual advice, or sometimes he used to mitigate these quarrels and things like that. He had a little position, so a little pride, and this is towards the end of his life that he was involved in all of these things, and a little bit headstrong. He had this desire to do this Puruschanan, this type of spiritual practice where you start on the new moon day and you repeat your mantra, and each day you increase it a certain amount to the full moon, and then you decrease it a certain amount to the next new moon. He wanted to do it with his Gayatri mantra, and Thakur was trying to encourage him to do it according to this worship of Mother, something like that. So Thakur was a little unhappy that he didn't. He just dismissed that suggestion of doing on his own, and he was a ritualist. So all of these things kind of tie into it. Yeah. So Ishan and Kishori, who was M's brother, younger brother, entered and sat down on the floor after saluting Sri Ramakrishna. Ishan was a great ritualist. He was devoted to the performance of the various rites and ceremonies prescribed by the scriptures. The master opened the conversation. Now, Thakur had nothing against these things, but he felt that they were in the beginning stage, and those who were very serious about spiritual life, they would somehow graduate beyond these things. Master, can one attain knowledge of God by merely repeating the word God? Now, this is another question that we hear. We repeat the divine name, it has a certain power to it. What Thakur is saying, there has to be some love behind it, not necessarily some great deep understanding of philosophical things or anything, but we have to do it with great sincerity and love and longing and everything. In fact, let me stop here. We'll begin with this. This is the bottom of page 610. And this is a very powerful and very important chapter in this Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And one of the few where there's a little bit of drama, things taking place. So nice section. We'll continue next Friday. I won't be here. The Friday after that. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukam Bhatadavikraham Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirisa Namah. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Okay, thank you everyone, and we will see you next time.